All right. Okay, hello everyone. Kristen Ancker here, kristenancker.com, your parent empowerment specialist. And I help overwhelmed moms who are struggling with chaos and all the joys of parenting, power struggles, sibling rivalry. And I help parents with toddlers to tweens. And today I invited somebody very special, a friend and colleague, Cindy Thackston, and Cindy specializes in teenagers. So I've been talking to Cindy a lot lately about how we can help our teenagers now in this time, and what we can do as parents of tweens and teenagers. So I want to introduce everybody to Cindy Thackston. Cindy's a certified professional coach and a compassionate supporter of parents and their teens. And as a parent of 3 teens herself, Cindy has made it her life's work to understand the world that today's kids are facing and to help parents to bridge the generation gap by accepting what is and meeting each challenge with an open mind and heart. And I just love that, Cindy. So welcome. And
hi, thank you for having me.
well, thank you, because I'm going to learn so much from you, because I do have a tween in the house.
Yeah, perfect.
It's been interesting. So could you just tell me a little bit about how you started to become a parent coach and why teenagers?
Yeah, sure. Well, right now I have 3 teenagers. I have 14, 16, and 17. So I have a freshman, a sophomore, and a junior in high school. When I started coaching, it was 5 years ago. I think for me, what happened was when I just realized early on that there was nothing important to me, like the day I gave birth, than having a great relationship with my kids. And I think it started because I didn't have a great relationship with my mom or my dad. I was a 70s, 80s child. So, the latchkey parents, it was a whole different time. So of course, as a parent, I wanted the opposite experience for myself. So I always knew that I wanted to have a really great relationship with my kids. And as I started raising them, I quickly realized that I just had never seen anything like this before. I was like in uncharted waters, like I didn't experience it as a child myself. So there was just a lot going on that I already didn't know how to handle as early as like preschool or, up to 3rd grade. I can remember, experiences that made me scratch my head. So I think, after leaving my corporate job of 20 years and becoming a stay-at-home mom, I was just going to make that my mission. I was going to figure this out. I was going to do it right. So anytime anything would happen, I would just like roll up my sleeves and just start devouring books and experimenting with different methods. And, they weren't working. They weren't working. Instead, what was happening was I was like driving this wedge in between me and my little ones that, I already could see that they, I wasn't making the connection that I wanted to make. So I don't know, life coaching just kind of fell into my lap, and I went for it, and it changed everything. And as a bonus, it even changed my relationship with my mom, who I happened to lose like 3 years later to cancer. So I was so grateful for having the tools and, the experience that I had with coaching. So I decided that I had to help other people.
I know, that's amazing. I help moms more with, those toddler ages up to what I have now, because I feel like that's my experiences with early childhood and school age kids. And so I have to say I'm a little scared for these teenage years. So is it really hard, or what can we expect? And, what's going on now? Like, I have to admit, like, I'm scared with all the social media just because I did not have that growing up. So it's a whole new world for me. And so how do you help parents in that realm?
So I'll just start by saying that's a great question. And yeah, I would say maybe not for all, but for most parents at some point. Raising teens is really hard these days. And, you know, I don't think it's something, well, I don't think that the jury's still out. I know that it's not anything to be ashamed of, but I think parents still are, you know, struggling and wrestling with this on their own because they feel ashamed, like a failure as a parent. But what we really need to do is to come together and get the help and, you know, reach out to the people who are, you know, making this their life's work, because this isn't anything that anybody knows how to do instinctually. This isn't about, like, you know, parenting, you know, naturally. It's not our gut instincts anymore. Like, we're up against a lot of things that took that away from us, I think. But I would say what I've noticed with my own kids and with clients, like the time I start getting phone calls is right around between the ages of 10 to 13, especially for girls. And with boys, 15 seems to be the magic number. I mean, I don't know why that is. I think it's just, by then though, in my experience, it's almost too late. Parents have been like wrestling with their teenage sons for a couple years, and then I get a phone call. So, you know, I think, except you have to just expect that what's happening in the world, like you're worried about, right? The exposure to social media, the violent video games, just the technology, and what are they seeing and when are they seeing it and how are they processing it, right? Combined with their personalities, and then, you know, their communities and their peers and the parenting, like all of these things are coming together. And, you know, it could end up being the perfect storm depending on each situation. It's different. It's not going to be the same for everybody, right? And as kids, what they really want most is just to be able to fit in and to feel accepted, right? And they're trying to satisfy their needs the only way they know how. And I think parents at that age, they start to lose control or feel like they've lost control because they were doing everything right and their kids were cooperating and they had a great relationship with them, and it starts to derail. And then there starts to be a little bit of panic. And then I think it turns into power struggles. And then there's that wedge that starts to get driven in the relationship.
Right.
And that's where you don't want to go.
And I think you said it too. And I felt this way as a younger mom. Like, I kept all the challenges to myself because I felt, like you said, like I was a failure because my kids weren't doing what I wanted them to do. And maybe the house wasn't as neat as I expected it to be. And it's like, it was a lot harder than I expected.
Yeah.
But then when I learned and I got trained in positive discipline and I started to hear people's challenges, I was like, oh, we all have these same challenges. So like you said, why don't we come together and get the support? Because I think it's so needed. And it's just, parenting wasn't meant to be done alone. Like, it takes a village. And right now it really is the struggle of, we are doing it alone. But the joy of technology, where we have people like you who are experts in this, because our kids are dealing with a lot, and it's looking like, it could look like different things. So the big topic, and Cindy's going to be joining me tomorrow afternoon for our last parent empowerment support group. And we're going to talk a lot about anxiety. So tomorrow, and if anyone's interested, please message me and I'll give you the private Zoom account that we're going to be on from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And what does that anxiety look like? And Cindy, maybe you can talk about like some of the red flags, or what should we be looking for, and maybe what we should be doing for ourselves too.
Yeah. Anxiety is like it's like trending, right? It doesn't seem to just be like that word that you hear every day, whether it's about your kids or about, you know, yourself. Anxiety. It's like we used to use the word stress, right? There is a ton of anxiety. I mean, I think it's an epidemic, right? Anxiety in kids and children starts very young, probably around that age, 10. And with teenagers, it just compounds and compounds and compounds. And parents are feeling anxious because they don't know how to parent their teens. So we have anxiety around it. And I just in my experience, I have a daughter who has anxiety, like generalized anxiety. I mean, I can go into that story, but it's terrible. I mean, it's terrible. It's hereditary. Her dad, you know, his mom, like it's definitely in the family, and
Mm.
it's nothing that, you know, I did or that she did. So some anxiety is hereditary, but then
Oh,
look around.
you froze up a little bit. Can you say it again?
I said some anxiety is hereditary, you know, and there's nothing you can really do about it. But then on top of that, look at the world that we're living in today. Like, look at social media, look at, you know, what they're doing at school, active shooter drills, the news, the media, the violent video games, right? You've got vaping, drugs, peer pressure, all of these things.
So,
Not to be,
Cindy, can you hear me? It started to break up a little bit. So I might have you repeat.
okay, you're frozen.
Wait, sorry.
Oh, there you are. Wait, we can edit this part out.
Okay. Oh, good. We're still recording. So
Oh,
let's keep going because you broke up a little bit. So you were talking about the anxiety that your daughter has, and like what. And then we lost you for a little bit.
oh,
So.
okay. I'll just backtrack. So, my daughter has generalized anxiety, clinical anxiety, which was, you know, it's hereditary. We know that,
Mhm.
from her dad, from his mom. It runs in the family. It's nothing that I did as a parent. It's nothing that she did as a child. It's
Mhm.
part of her wiring. That's who she is. Um, and then I was saying, like, you know, the world today, like on top of that, you know, some kids have anxiety that they've inherited. But then
Mm.
you look at the world, right? You look at social media, you look at the video games and the violence, you look at what they're doing in school with active shooter drills and the news and the media and, you know, vaping and drugs and peer pressure and having to be perfect and, you know, comparing yourself to people on the internet. Like there's so much to process, so much for them to process with their young brains. They're not even developed all the way. I mean, how can they process all of this, right? Because anxiety is, in simple terms, it's an emotion.
Mhm.
Right? And I think of it like when I deal with teenagers, I explain it as like it's the creative emotion, right? It's the emotion that gets creative. It creates stories and outcomes and worst case scenarios, right? Like so that they can protect
Mhm.
themselves, so they can get that certainty, right? They want to have certainty. So the anxiety will go on and, you know, create all these crazy scenarios
These
that aren't real.
stories that we sometimes it's yeah.
Yeah, and we do that too as parents, right? We create these worst case scenarios so we can protect our kids. But it doesn't serve them and it doesn't serve us, and it's not usually reality. So it's a lot of
Mhm.
emotion to process and live alongside of the day to day, right? So,
That's hard. So what are a couple tools, and then we'll probably wrap up, but what what are some tools that you give to parents whose children have anxiety, or what did you do with your daughter to help her? Because that's interesting. I've never heard of that, that some people just have it in their wiring. And
yeah, so I have, like I said, 3 kids, and you know, for each one of my kids, I'll just give 2 quick examples. But for my one daughter who has severe anxiety, like crippling anxiety, you know, yes, there's therapy involved. We've worked with therapists, but there's also tools on just like being present in that moment, helping her slow down, right?
mm,
Helping her stop, like press pause and name the emotion, you
mhm,
know. And then I ask her, like, anxiety is like a counterpart inside of her. What is your anxiety telling you? What is your anxiety afraid of right now? As if it's another person. And they're so good at being able to say, it's telling me that I'm going to be embarrassed, or it's telling me that I'm going to fail the test, or it's telling me, like, they can tell you what their anxiety is telling them,
mm,
right? So you're trying to validate that emotion on that spot because you want to like de-escalate it, you know. And then you can use distraction depending on what it is, but if they're already in that panic, like, you just need to be with them. You're not going to be able to change anything. You can't reverse it. So it's just about being present and validating that and just letting them talk through what that anxiety is saying. And then just kind of helping them calm down. And then later you can get into like the reality of it, like what's the real evidence, right? My other daughter, it's a little bit different. Like she gets anxiety when she feels overwhelmed. So with her schoolwork or with social situations, she feels overwhelmed. And for her, that turns into anxiety, which turns into avoidance or procrastination or not wanting to do things, right? But that is a form of anxiety, and that's how she manifests it. So for her, we just try to break things down into smaller steps. And that seems to really help. If you're just looking at the one thing that's in front of her, the very next step
Right.
that she has to think about, then she can't go on and on and on, right? With her anxiety, creating
That's
all
what
things.
I need that. That's a good tool for me, because I feel that overwhelm. You know, I'm always like, oh, I'm overwhelmed. And it's like, okay, slow down. You know, what can I do next? What do I do next? And once I just get going, I get it done.
See, but the key thing that I want to say just real quick is before you can really apply any of these tools, what I tell parents that I work with right away is, you know, you have to focus on the relationship. You know, if you have kids that are younger, 9, 10, 11, like the little ones, like you're really focusing on the relationship, because I can tell you that you can't help your kid, your teen, if your relationship is already, you know, if there's already like a disconnect between you, because they're not going to trust you. Right? They're not going to trust you to tell you what they're feeling. Like they're not going to trust you. They're going to shut down and they're going to go to their room. So really focusing on building that relationship and having that connection where they feel safe to be able to tell you what they're afraid of, and they feel safe to be able to, you know, say they're embarrassed or ashamed of something. Like that is the key. And that's, you know, when I work with families, I work on really, you know, connecting them back together so they can have that foundation where everything is going to come from. All parenting is going to come from, you know, a solid foundation, a relationship.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, Cindy, thank you so much. And I feel like I could talk to you for hours, which I'm happy that we do get to talk to each other. And tomorrow we'll be together from 4 to 5 on Wednesday. And let anyone know who would like some support. I've been doing these parent support groups for the past month and a half, and I think I almost get more support from them than, not that I get more, but I get just as much support than the people that come onto the call. So it's really, it's helpful to all be helping out. And so tomorrow's theme will be around anxiety, but also I want to share some tools tomorrow about what we can be doing for ourselves. Because I think like when we're the leader, that's where it all stems from us. And I love that, of like building that connection in that relationship, because one of the best things I did for myself when this all started to go down is I said, you know what, the only two things that I have in my control right now is what's happening up here, like my thoughts, and then my actions. So I've been focusing on positive psychology and like gratitude and mindfulness and just being present with what we do have. And I've been very lucky to be healthy, and we just have to keep focusing on the good that will hopefully come out of this very difficult time. Because it's hard being a parent right now. I was saying to someone the other day that I'm the mom, the teacher, the chef, the housekeeper, the dentist. I was an orthodontist the other day. I had to clip some wires. Like, it's ridiculous.
Oh, I'm so lucky to have teenagers right now. I can honestly say that. Like I don't envy the parents who are trying, you know, parenting younger ones. Really, my kids are pretty independent, so it's great. Sorry, not to rub that in. Whoop, you're frozen.
Well,
Are you there?
so fast, and
I can't hear you. Oh,
are you frozen?
think we lost you. Where's Kristen? Where'd you go?